I used to think that my daily planner was like making me productive until one day I woke up and realized it was just keeping me overwhelmed, overscheduled, and overcommitted. Well, thankfully, that woke me up and set me on a path to finding a new way to plan and manage my time, and it changed everything. And today I am here to share with you top 5 time management tips that prevent me from getting overwhelmed, overscheduled, and overcommitted. My name is Megan Sumrell. I am a time management planning expert for women, and I'm on a mission to bring work life harmony into homes all over the world. And I do that through my proprietary planning system. Now, today I'm going to be breaking down 5 time management tips for you. And make sure you stick around to the last one because it is a complete game changer. Chances are you're doing a flavor of this, but you're probably doing it wrong, and it's not getting rid of any of the stress in your life. Now, I talk about time management tips, right? But what it's really after here, what we're at the heart of is controlling your calendar and your time, which ultimately means that you are taking back control over your life. We all are familiar with the term time management, but when you think about it, it's really hard to manage time, right? Time is just constantly moving. What we need to do are have systems and tools in place that allow us to really have control over our calendar and how we're spending our time. So let's jump into these top 5 tips. Tip number 1, plan your weeks, not your days. I repeat, plan your weeks, not your days. Unfortunately, many productivity and planning experts out there, and even planners that you go buy in all the usual places, keep you in perpetual daily mode, right? Daily mode of operating. Wake up, make your task list, work on it. You're never going to finish it. Wake up the next day, rewrite a bunch of stuff, rinse and repeat. This is keeping you very, very, very reactive. You're reacting to the just in now. If you are operating from a daily planning basis or daily list making mode, you are going to perpetually be behind or getting things done just in time. This is why we need to shift away from daily planning and move into weekly planning. I still do mine on a paper planner. You can do it on a digital calendar, but you'll see this layout here. I'm always looking at my week holistically and planning how that's going to work instead of daily mode. Tip number 2, you have to make sure you're capturing all the time needed for the commitments on your calendar. Now, what do I mean by that? I'm going to give you 2 different examples. One you may already be doing, but the second one you probably aren't. Let's say you have just gotten off the phone and have booked a dentist appointment to go get your teeth cleaned, and the appointment is at 1 o'clock. They might even send you a calendar appointment, and now it's showing up on your digital calendar, 1 to 1:45 teeth cleaning. Well, you need to actually ask yourself, how much time do you really need for that appointment? If your appointment's at 1 o'clock, maybe the dentist is 20 minutes away and you know at about 12:30 you need to start gathering, get a snack, brush your teeth, find your keys, get in the car and drive there. So if all you have is 1 to 1:45 on your calendar, you're going to end up potentially getting booked back to back, or you're going to end up having to cancel something, right? So instead of that 1 to 1:45 appointment, it might move to 12:30 to 2:15, because that's the reality of how much time you really need for that appointment. Now let's translate this to kind of a work environment. Maybe you have a standing meeting. I know I have a standing meeting every Thursday morning with my COO, and we have that on our calendar. Well, I know I need time to prepare for that. I need about 15 minutes of prep time so that I can show up with everything ready. And then after the meeting, I always need about 15 minutes to process any information that I now need to get captured into my dashboards, my planner, etc. I'm actually putting that time into my calendar so that I'm protecting all the space I need, not just the actual meeting time. All right. So that second tip is making sure you're capturing all the time that you need for specific appointments in your calendar. Let's move on to tip number 3. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. I repeat, just because you can doesn't mean you should. Particularly for women, it is so easy for us to fall in the trap of saying yes to things or taking on tasks because we know we can. Right. And there's a subtle thing at play here, especially if you're a mom, right? Let's say you're raising tiny humans. Well, they can't do anything for themselves early on. You literally have to do it all for them. But if we're not careful, we fast forward 10 years later and we're still doing for others stuff that they can do themselves. Right? So this kind of ties into that. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. Well, this is true in everything in life. And so I want to encourage you as you are saying yes to things, ask yourself, am I saying yes because this is something I know I can do? Or is this something that ultimately someone else could do? I don't really want to. Other people are capable of doing it, but I'm just saying yes because I can. Now, this ultimately means that you may need to let go of some stuff, right? Things might not get done the same way that you are doing them, but I promise you the time freedom that you will get from not always saying yes to things is going to be a game changer. On to number 4, and this is true especially if you are working in a corporate setting. You absolutely need to control what access other people have to your calendar, meaning you have the right and the responsibility to put boundaries in place that limits the amount of time other people can come and take from you. Now, I was recently working with a VIP client for the day. She has a very high-powered career, and we finally got to the root of one of the problems was her belief that her company owned her calendar for the entire hours that she was expected to be working. So let's say you're working a traditional 9 to 5. She believed that they owned her calendar from 9 to 5, which was leading to double, triple bookings of meetings, entire days full of back-to-back meetings without any breaks. She was giving access and control of her calendar over to everybody else. Now you might be thinking, well, yeah, that's what they're paying for. No, they're not. They're also paying for you to do a job, right? At some point you have to have the time to sit down and do the work that they are paying you to do. So you need to learn what types of blocks to put into your calendar to limit how much access other people have to you. So, for example, with that client that I was talking about, she got to where she was blocking time on her calendar for focus work or for prepping for meetings. And here's the good news, guys. You don't have, there are systems in place with all the digital calendaring tools where you can mark things just as busy, but people can't see what it is. So you don't have to let them see, oh, I'm marking this as busy because I'm working on this project. You can just make your calendar unavailable. And if someone reaches out to you, you don't have to tell them why. You can just say, I'm already booked. Now, I have to open up my calendar for people to book time with me when they are asking me, booking time to be a podcast guest, etc. Well, I have a lot of controls in place on specific windows of time that I am opening up my calendar to say, this is when other people have access to come take time from me. But if you were to ever try and take time from me on a Friday, you're going to see that's never going to be possible. I have those boundaries in place. Guys, the ultimate goal with everything that I teach, with how we plan and manage our time, is for you to have control back over how you're spending it, what you're working on, what your life looks like. And so this means you have to control what you let other people have access to. Now, as promised, this 5th one is likely going to have you thinking about things very, very differently. All right. So, our final and 5th tip is this: you need to learn how to not delegate, but actually transfer ownership. All right. So, let me explain the difference of this to you. As you are on a quest to maybe lighten your load, and maybe you've worked with someone that's taught you, yeah, you've got to delegate stuff. You can't keep taking things on, right? Well, delegating by itself doesn't actually lighten your load, because here's what delegating looks like for most people. They delegate a specific task out to someone, and then they still have an item on their list to check in and make sure it's being done. Or, follow up. Let me review it. Let me check on it. Let me make sure they're doing it. Let me ask again. You haven't lightened your load at all. Now you've just shifted how you're spending your time. Instead of doing the work, you're constantly checking in on the work, right? You haven't lightened your load at all. Now, transferring of ownership means it is not on your list in any way, shape, or form. And you have also transferred the output, right, to someone else. You are removing yourself of that. Now, this is where things get scary, right? Especially if you're a control freak. So I want to encourage you to start small with this and think about what are things in your life that you are not highly invested in the outcome, right? And start with those. So I'll give you a silly example in our life. My daughter is finally of an age where I was realizing, like, I don't need to be doing her laundry anymore. She is fully capable of doing that. Now, I could have delegated it to say, hey, you need to start doing your laundry, which would have looked like, every couple days. Don't forget to start the laundry today. Don't forget you have it in the washer. Make sure you've got clean clothes for tomorrow. I'll just do the laundry. It's easier. Now, what transferring of ownership has looked like is I had to sit down with myself and say, am I married to the outcome of this? Meaning, she's of an age, if she's going to go to school in dirty clothes or not have what she wants to wear the next day, that is not a me problem. So I've done true transferring of ownership, meaning it is 100% not my responsibility to get clothes washed, dried, etc. And after a few unfortunate days of panics of not having clothes cleaned and me having no solution, well, now that transferring of ownership is going a lot smoother than it did at first. Now, transferring ownership means you also have got to let go of control, and you cannot be so highly invested in the output or upset if it's not done the way you want it done, right? So, this is why if you are new to this, pick things that you can truly say, I'm going to let the chips fall where they may if it's not done the way I do it. And what's going to happen over time, you are going to experience the freedom of truly transferring ownership instead of just delegating, that you will start to care less and less about specific outcomes for things. We've had a lot of transferring of ownership in our house, of shifting things from me to others. Other people that used to do things are now coming on to me. We've done a lot of shifting around with that, which means the output of things look very different. And guess what? It's okay. So, to recap real quick, our 5 tips: plan your weeks, not your days. Capture all the time needed for everything that goes onto your calendar. Number 3, just because you can doesn't mean you should, right? Number 4, control what access other people have to your calendar. And number 5, start actually transferring ownership, not just delegating. Now, if you want to keep up with all things time management, organization, planning, and productivity for women, make sure you are subscribed here on the channel so you do not miss any future videos.